Hello everyone. Today I will speak about vasculitis. Vasculitis is a damage of blood vessels and inflammation of blood vessels. It means inflammation and vascule means vasculature or blood vessels. Essentially, this damage is caused by the immune system. White blood cells mistakenly release small molecules that can damage the blood vessels. Essentially, the immune system makes a mistake and thinks that the blood vessels are foreign. So, vasculitis is an autoimmune disease. التهاب الأوعية الدموية هو مجموعة من الحالات الطبية التي تسبب تلف الأوعية الدموية من خلال الالتهاب. أكيد إحنا بنسأل وبنفكر إنه لو صار destroyed لكل blood vessels, how is that compatible with life? Depending on which blood vessels are affected, vasculitis can be classified as large vessels, medium vessels, or small vessels vasculitis. Polyarteritis nodosa. This is a medium vessel vasculitis that affects many arteries. And so, if we break it down, we can see poly means many, artery means arteries, itis means inflammation, and it's inflammation just like any vasculitis you see inflammation. Nodosa means nodular. Polyarteritis nodosa, many arteries have an inflammation and are nodular. So, why is it nodular? Well, to understand that, let's draw out a blood vessel. Remember that blood vessels are like pipes. They carry blood and distribute nutrients throughout the body. And so, here I am shading the wall of the blood vessel, and in the back, I am kind of drawing this little circular appearance. I'm trying to show you it's a little bit of a 3D drawing. So imagine you take a cross-section through the blood vessels right down the middle. So you can see that blood and nutrients would travel down this blood vessel. So, remember with vasculitis, the body is mistaking the blood vessels to be a foreign proteins or something's foreign. And so, antibodies, little white-shaped proteins that are released by the immune system, are targeting the blood vessel wall because they think it's foreign. Remember, antibodies act as markers to draw in white blood cells to cause some damage to the area, because these white blood cells release molecules that are very destructive. The intent is to kill pathogens, but here you are accidentally killing the blood vessels. And so, one theory as to why the antibodies are accidentally targeting blood vessels is the theory of molecular mimicry. Molecular mimicry. What is molecular mimicry? Well, it's the theory that foreign proteins such as bacteria, viruses, or really anything bad, any pathogens that gets in your body, are recognized by the immune system. The immune system, of course, creates these antibodies to target these bad foreign proteins, and so, this is good. This is what antibodies are used for. They are supposed to target foreign proteins to mark them for destruction for white blood cells, but in this process of recognizing these foreign proteins, many antibodies are created. So, now the immune system is ramping up to find and seek out these foreign proteins, if they ever appear again. Now, the idea of molecular mimicry is that there are self-proteins, such as maybe proteins from the blood vessel walls, that look identical to foreign proteins. These antibodies that were created in response to these foreign proteins now also are recognizing self-protein, because the self looks very similar to these foreign proteins. This is the core of molecular mimicry. In polyarteritis nodosa, hepatitis B is actually found in about 20 to 30% of patients, so it's believed that maybe hepatitis B, the proteins that are in this virus, can cause a molecular mimicry and look very identical to self, and so these version hepatitis B molecules look like self and induce this autoimmune destruction of the blood vessels, and so that's why I make this a point of molecular mimicry. Now, in polyarteritis nodosa, again, white blood cells release all these immune peptides and cause destruction of the blood vessel walls. Damage to the wall causes molecules like collagens and tissue factors, which are normally not exposed to the blood, to be released, and when they are released, they interact with the clotting factors in the blood, such as fibrin. Fibrin reacts with the stuff in the wall of the blood vessels and creates a net-like mesh. This net-like mesh is a clot, so fibrin is integral in a clot formation. Another word you might hear for clot is thrombosis. Thrombosis is the formation of clots, and so along with this acute inflammation and a clot formation, you can also have old wounds in blood vessels where the fibrin has already tired to patch up the wall. Now this wall right here is very weak, and so the vessels go through this damage over and over again, and the blood vessels walls continues to weaken. Now blood vessels obviously are just like pipes, and they are used to carry blood downstream. If red blood cells or any contents hit the wall of the blood vessels, they are supposed to branch off and just continue on their merry way. But the problem here is with a weakened blood vessels. When red blood cells push against these, the wall is so weak that it bulks out. The bulging of the blood vessels walls is called an aneurysm. It's a weakened part of the wall that bulks out from the pressure on the inside of the blood vessel. And lastly, if the blood vessels walls weaks so much and receives way too much pressure, it can rupture, and this allows blood to spill out of the blood vessels. In medium-sized blood vessels, ruptures of this can cause a lot of bleeding, and so ruptures is a hereditary complication of polyarteritis nodosa. Now, if you were to take a slice of this blood vessel's walls and take a look at it under a microscope, you would be taking a biopsy. That's what a biopsy is. A slice of tissue that you take a look at under a microscope. And so, in polyarteritis nodosa, we see this fibrinoid necrosis. There are fibrin clots in the wall of blood vessels, and a lot of debris in there too, and cells that are dead. And so you go through fibrinoid necrosis, and the blood vessels also go through some scarring. So it's an attempt to try to heal. Once the scar is finished, once the blood vessels has been patched up, this is the process of healing, and so you continue to go through this cycle over and over again. And this continuous process will cause weakening of the blood vessels walls. And I make this point because the weakening can get very severe, and the blood vessels will bulge out, just like I was showing above. These aneurysms appears all throughout the blood vessels and give its classic appearance. So this blood vessels walls bulgy, blood vessels walls bulgy, blood vessels walls bulgy, is noted to look like a string full of beads. And this is actually classic appearance of polyarteritis nodosa. This beads on a string pattern. This pattern can be seen under a microscope, and it can also be seen when you take a look at an arteriogram. This picture right here is an arteriogram of the kidney. Here's the kidney right here. Kidneys kind of look like kidney beans, right? And so, here's blood vessels that are going through passing into the kidney, and if you look closely at the blood vessels, you can see some of these little dots that are in the blood vessels. These are the nodes. This is the nodality, and this isn't very prominent. This arteriogram right here, which allows you to visualize the inside of the blood vessels, can actually show very severe aneurysm, very severe bludgeoning of the blood vessels walls. And so I am exaggerating and show these little back circles, and just like our beads on a string drawing above. You may see nodality of the blood vessels like that, looking like a beads on a string pattern. And so, polyarteritis nodosa is famous for causing a lot of damage to many different medium blood vessels all over the place. Blood vessels in your intestine, blood vessels in the spleen, blood vessels in the kidney, blood vessels of the skin, and it can actually commonly be in the legs as well. Even a blood vessel serving the nervous or the genitals or the heart. As you can guess, this causes a wide variety of symptoms and signs. Not only will you get your generalized symptoms such as fever, chills, and dry sweats just like any other vasculitis, but also you are getting local damage of organs. So, damage in the intestine may lead to bloody diarrhea. Damage to blood vessels supplying the skin may give you a sort of rash appearance and other skin lesions. These ulcers are formed because blood isn't supplying the skin as it should. Blood not supplying the heart can lead to heart attacks. The heart muscles won't contract anymore. If nerves don't get blood, you may see something called neuropathy. Neuropathy means neural pain or neural issue. And so, you might not be able to move your foot as well. If the nerve supplying your foot is damaged, or you may feel a tingling sensation or decreasing sensation in the foot. Lastly, I wanted to touch on the kidneys. When the kidneys receive very low blood volume, because remember these arteries are being damaged, and maybe on the inside it's very narrow, and so blood can't be derived to the kidney tissue. When the kidney senses decreased blood volume, it thinks, oh, I need to increase pressure. And so its sensation of low blood volume makes it go through the renin aldosterone tyrosine system. The system is the kidney way to heal on the water and fluid. And so you get an increase in the blood pressure. This increase in blood pressure, of course, is also known as hypertension. Now, how do you remember all of this? There's so many different vessels that are damaged. Among all the arteries that are damaged, pulmonary arteries, blood vessels supplying the lungs are not damaged. We actually don't know why this is the case, but this ends up being a great mnemonic for you to help you remember this. Polyarteritis nodosa, pulmonary arteries are not damaged. Treatment is done with two different medications. The first is steroids. Steroids inhibition the ability for white blood cells to communicate with other white blood cells. So, for example, here's a part of the blood vessels walls, and let's say these white blood cells want to cause damage to this wall. It will also regulate its bodies by sending these molecules to communicate and say, hey, come on, over here. However, steroids shut down the creation of these immune molecules. These are called cytokines. By the way, It's a way for cells to communicate and so shutting down prevent more white blood cells from being recruited to the blood vessels walls, which decrease the damage of this disease. And cyclophosphamide is the other medication that's used to treat these diseases. Cyclophosphamide acts to cause a damage to DNA that seems very distressed. The point of this medication is to target cells that rapidly divide. Immune cells actually go through rapid growth and division. You have a new creation of immune cells every single day. So, by killing off some of these rapidly dividing cells, it shuts down the immune system. So, by preventing the cell from causing damage, we shut down inflammation to arteries.